3 minutes. Okay. What does the term active listening mean to you? Do you remember active listening? What does it mean to you? Let's see the active
To
ones.
be gentle in choosing our words and to listen well to people.
Okay, listening
to
to
give them an
people.
advice, yes, but in a gentle way.
Yes, that's exactly true. Okay, what else? Hi, guys. So, active listening, what does it mean to you? Again, once more, again, what does it mean to you? Why do we listen actively to other people? Why? What reason do we listen actively to other people? Is there a reason for that?
Yes, sometimes to help them or to care about them.
Excellent. So we actively listen to others to help them, support or guide, and of
To
course
solve
to
the
understand.
problem.
Yes,
To have a
to solve some
communicative
problems.
communication, in order to be a kind of communication between each other and to help each other and support each other and have this kind of contact between each other.
Excellent. So that's it's all about understanding others. If we listen to others actively, of course, we will understand what they suffer from, what are their problems, what are their fears about, and how can we help them. Okay, so do you think active listening is an important mentor skill? Is it an important skill for a mentor, a teacher, a parent, or for
Yes.
anyone in? Yes, okay.
Yes,
How
It's a
of
key
is it
skill, not
important?
just important. Yeah.
Yeah, why, Noha? I caught you. So why is it important?
Uh, mainly, a mentor is a listener at the start. So I listen, I infer, I take out everything I could get from a simple sentence that I hear, so I can help as much as I can. So I can get the situation and show him the way.
Yeah, of course. Show him the way. This is the core of the active listening. When we are listening to other people actively, we are showing them the way. What should they follow? How can they improve themselves? Or how can they develop themselves, of course. So, another question, have you been or have you ever been observed? Have you observed a classroom before? Have you observed a classroom before? As a teacher, have you observed your classes before?
No.
My
No?
classroom, my own classroom, you mean?
Yeah, your own classroom.
All the
Haven't
time.
you observed? Yeah, of course. We are all the time we are observing our classrooms, we are observing our learners. Okay. So, how was your experience about observing your learners in the classroom? Did you find anything? Did you find their differences, or what did you find when you observe your classrooms and learners?
I record the class.
That's a great,
And
Hannah.
then-
Welcome, Hannah.
Yes.
Nice to see you. Okay. Yes, Hannah,
Yes.
go ahead.
After watching the videos which I made, I found many things.
That's
Many
great. So
things
tell
to
us,
do, yes.
tell us some of these things. What do you do with
Yes.
your learners after observing them?
Some of them were sad, and I discovered that they were not able to write because I write very quickly on the board. They
So
didn't
great.
write the whole lesson on the notebook.
Yeah.
So
So
the
how?
next time,
Yes,
yes,
Hannah. Yes.
next,
Yes.
next time I let them to write before my lesson.
That's a great. Okay. So when you mean when you observed your learners, you solved their problem. Okay.
Yes,
Did you find
I find
any
some
other
mistakes.
That's
I
really
find some
amazing.
mistakes in my
Yes.
way to yes
So you
to
mean
explain my lesson.
you mean you video record your lesson, honey?
Yes, I always record. I always record my lessons at my class. Yes.
So did you find anything else? That's really great. And I hope all of us this year, inshallah, try to video record our lessons, inshallah. Okay. Did you find any other problems when you observed your classroom or when you rewatched your videos with your learners?
Yes, I found a girl. She was writing after me, and she was hiding her note from her classmates.
Okay, so
So
how
I
did you
asked,
solve? Yes, Hannah.
yes, I said that it is a general lesson or an ordinary lesson. It's not a test or an exam. So I
So-
persuaded her to let them show. Yes, they
Okay.
were far from the board, so they can't see the board well. They they wanted to see what she is writing, but she didn't let them to do that.
Okay, so Hannah, for your experience, or as you have experienced with your learners, you found that when you observed your learners, they have already got some problems, and you try to solve them. So does that work with them for the best or for the worst when you observed them?
No, for the best, of course.
Excellent. So this
Yes,
is what we
I
mean.
tried to
Yeah.
sit the whole class to see the board well, because
Yeah.
the ones who are sitting not far from the board, but beside the door, beside the window, they can't see the board well.
Okay,
And
that's really
when I saw the video, and when I watched the video, I saw that they were moving from their places to another places to see well.
okay. That's really wonderful, Hannah. And this is our second topic for today. How can we observe our learners, and a lot of different techniques to observe our learners. So my dear friends, have you noticed how Hannah helped her learners when she video recorded her lessons? So do you think, my dear friends, is it a good or a bad experience? When you try to do so, will it be a good or a bad experience?
Good experience.
Of course. Why, Mr. Muhammad? Why will it be, inshallah, a good experience?
Because she knows something before and try to avoid the problem to happen again.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. So when we observe others, we try to find the problems they are suffering from, and we try to solve them in the future and try avoiding them. That's really great. Okay. So have you been observed, Mr. Muhammad, before? Have you been observed? If
No.
yes, what was your experience like? No, I
No.
don't mean observing. I don't mean you observed your classroom. I mean, have you been observed before? Have a supervisor visit you in your classes before?
Sometimes he visited my class, but as usual, he didn't say something new. I'm trying to help myself. Like
Okay,
that.
so what was your experience like?
About his observation.
Yes.
Or what?
Yes, about observation. What was your experience? Is it a good or a bad experience?
Really, it was a bad experience.
Okay, why? Why is it a bad experience? And how will you hope for the next or the coming observation to be like?
Every time he decided to visit me, I'm looking forward to learn something new from him. I asked him, please, Mister, say you can teach me something, or you can stand up and teach me how to do something well, unlike that. But almost he didn't do anything.
So, okay, as a mentor, as inshallah, you will be a mentor for your learners this year.
Inshallah.
How will you observe your learners in this point of view or in another perspective? So you meant that when your supervisor visited you, he didn't add anything for you or to you. He didn't help you improve any skill or develop any part of your teaching. So as a teacher or as a mentor for your learners, how will you help them this year, inshallah, develop and improve themselves?
As for my learners?
Yeah, yes, for your learners.
First, I will look for any what do you call that good situation for classroom, and try to what to bring something new for my class every time I enter my class.
Okay, and what is the one thing you liked and with our program, and you will try to apply with them this year, inshallah?
This year, inshallah, I will try to keep using technology in my classroom. So it will be better for me to save my time and also save my effort at my classroom.
That's really great, Mr. Muhammad. Thank you so much. Okay, so do you remember? Yes, thank you, Mr. Muhammad. So we listen actively to our learners, our mentees, or our teachers, or even our colleagues or our friends, of course, to understand them, to give them a help, or to support them, of course. And as Mr. Ahmed has mentioned, to communicate with other people and to know how to act or communicate actively with them. So are there any ways of communicating, or do you remember the codes of communication with others? Do you remember the codes? Do you remember? We have some codes for the communication with others, starting with some letters. Do you remember? Okay, let's remember together. I'll see the letters and try to remember what does each letter mean. For example, the codes E. What does it mean when we say E? For communication, as a way of communication. What does E stand for? Do you remember?
I wasn't with you, but it's
Okay,
my good
so
luck. It's my
okay,
good
Hannah,
luck
but
to hear it again.
try to guess, Hannah. When we communicate with other, we try to get someone to talk. We try to take more examples to ask them for their points of view. So E stands for eliciting, Hannah. Okay, and do you remember Q and C? Q and C. It's very easy, by the way, Hannah. Q stands for what? When you talk with other people, Q stands for
Questions.
yes,
I know
excellent
M. I
questions. Yes,
know the M.
yes.
The M is standing for message, but I took it in another lecture.
Great, Hannah. But you added something to us today. We don't have the code M, by the way. So we add for two ways of communication. The code M for message. That's really great, Hannah. So we have E for eliciting. We have Q and C. Q for questioning, and C for asking for clarification for more examples. We have Q and PR. Do you remember, my dear friends? Q and
We have
PR
to use nodding.
yeah, nodding. This is for listening, but for communication, we use some codes like Q and PR. Q for questioning and PR for what? Do you remember PR? Probing, asking for deeper meaning. And the para, do you remember para stands for what? Para? Para, it's from its name. Paraphrasing or reflecting back. And A stands for presenting what's A. When we communicate with other people, listen actively to them, we try to present somewhat starting with the letter A. When we are helping others, we try to present some alternatives. So A stands for alternatives and is for structuring and the guiding to the action. Okay, let's start sharing our presentation. Today, inshallah, it will, we won't take a long time, inshallah. We will finish as soon as possible, بإذن الله, okay? So I hope you like it, inshallah. And forgive me, my mobile is very loaded. There's a lot of horrible things. Yes, that's it. Okay. So let's revise quickly. Do you remember all these? Do you remember the goals of the first mentee observation? Do you remember? Build what? Do you remember? The goals of the first meeting with your mentee is for building what? Do you remember? It's building rapport, setting the goals, and deciding about the details. And this is what we do with our learners at the beginning of the year when we meet them for the first time. We try to build rapport and set the goals and tell them about the rules and norms we are going to follow all the year round. The second part, pre-observation meeting, we have talked about the stages, okay, and your experience. And some of you said, Noha said she was lucky to have good supervisors who always support and help her to improve herself and add something new to her. And Mr. Muhammad mentioned that he has a bad experience. His supervisor never helped or tell him anything to improve himself or to develop himself. And we move to active listening. Do you remember? These are the basic communicative skills, how to communicate with others. And we mentioned that by active listening, effective language, and building rapport. When we talked about active listening, do you remember? We said we listen carefully to understand the other. So active listening is a technique of careful listening and observation of nonverbal cues with feedback in the form of paraphrasing. And some of you said nodding, eye contact, and using the facial expressions when we listen to others, okay? So this is exactly active listening. And we watched some videos and we talked about the 3 A's. Do you remember what are the 3 A's? Do you remember? What are the 3 A's stands for? The first thing is for, do you remember? Let's memorize together. Yeah, attitude, to show your interest in what's being said. And the second A stands for attention, to stay focused, yeah, on what's being said and don't get distracted, of course. So never interrupt the person who is telling you something. And the third A stands for adjustment. And when you adjust, you try to modify or to give your assumptions based on what's being said. You listen carefully and you give solutions to the problems of the speaker, okay? And here, how to achieve the 3 A's in active listening. And you mentioned by using nodding, some phrases like yeah, yes, okay. Non-verbal language, of course, looking at the eye, avoiding interrupting. Also remember to show interest in the things said, okay? And we have also watched another video about active listening. And after that, we talked about using effective language. What do we mean by using effective language? We meant how to communicate encouragingly and attentively to others. And we talked about these quotes, Hane. Some quotes when we try to use when we communicate with others, like E for eliciting, Q for questioning, and C for clarification, and para for paraphrasing, and A for giving alternatives, and S for structuring. We mean giving solutions to the speaker, okay? And we talked about building rapport and trust, of course, and we talked about the tips, and we moved to the classroom observation. And why is it important to observe our classes? Do you remember? Do you remember? Hannah mentioned a lot of wonderful things today. She said that when I observed my learners, I found some problems and I tried and I have already solved these problems. And she liked video recording her lessons. She always video record her lessons. And every time she try to find a problem and help her learners and support them to find a solution. So this is really wonderful and amazing. So let's watch another video about classroom observation strategy and listen study. Okay, how can we observe? our students effectively. So are you ready for the video? Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you can hear the sound, please.
الدروس الابتدائية بدأت على نون أكاديمي. أسس أولادك في المواد التراكمية واضمن لهم تجربة تعليم مفيدة من البيت.
Okay, let's watch the video.
Lesson study is a process whereby teachers as a team collaborate, develop a lesson that one of those people in the team volunteers to teach, and it's taught, it's observed by the other people in the team. The team comes back, has a discussion around it, what worked, what didn't work, what they think might need to be changed, and then another.
So do you know what's meant by lesson study? This part of classroom observation strategy is called a lesson study. Do you know what's a lesson study? From the video, it's about a teacher who volunteers to present a lesson, and he allows a group of his colleagues, a group of maybe supervisors, a group of teachers, or a group of his friends or colleagues to enter his classroom and observe him and tell him about each step he did with his learners and how to improve or to modify next time. So this is what we mean by lesson study. To a group of teachers visit a teacher while he is explaining a lesson, okay?
A volunteer from that group reteaches the same lesson with its adjustments to a different group of children, and then the observation and discussion is had again around that. The team leaders were the first people to do the lesson study and be the person to teach the lesson, and that way everybody felt it was okay. Lesson study is a very non-judgmental strategy to use. It's not about the teacher because the lesson is developed as a team, and it is a team effort, so it's around the strategy itself. It's not the teacher, it's not individualised. We're not looking at the teacher, we're looking at the strategy, we're looking at the things that are happening in classrooms to improve student outcomes.
At first, the students are really scared because they've got other teachers coming in the classroom. They feel really overwhelmed and think that all the teachers are there for them. So basically what we usually do before we do our lesson study, scaffold the students and remind them that lesson study is basically not to observe the students. It's basically us and other teachers visiting the classroom to think of ways of how we can improve student learning.
Our aim today is to look at student self-directed learning in stage 3.
Like Jan said, it is SOL, so it's self-organised learning environments. So it's very student-directed. So they've got a big question that they're researching and answering. They organise their own groups, and at the end they present one fact that they've found and then reflect on their learning in a group.
As observers, we don't interfere with the natural process of the lesson. We don't talk or carry on a sidebar conversation during the lesson. We can circulate around the room when the children are engaged, but not when it's a teacher and class situation. We stand to the back and the sides, and it's about the goals of the lesson. It's not about Amanda's teaching or Amanda. It's about the goals of the lesson, what's happening in the lesson, and what we can see from there. And of course, we're embedding all of those things that we've been talking about and learning about in professional learning.
Why is SOLs important? Why are those skills important? I know you all came up with your own success criteria. You've got them on your checklist. Hands up who can give me one example of something that they put for their success criteria.
I think it went well. They love SOLs, they're very engaged with it. You can see that they self-organise. I think they're just so engaged with the process, and you can see that they're connecting the skills, they're connecting the success criteria, and they're doing that in other subjects as well now. So it's nice to see a class that can self-regulate their learning.
It worked well, and there wasn't any behaviour problems. Everybody was on task, and in the end they did produce some good, relevant information.
Jalal, do you just want to give us a brief rundown on what's going to happen today?
Okay, so students in 568 and 560 have been undertaking learning using the SOUL model in order to develop their critical and creative abilities within the ICT capability. We all came together after Amanda did her first lesson study, and we realised that to change it for my lesson study, we'll do a buddy class. So Amanda did her SOUL with her class. My class is a buddy class, so mine is half of 568 and half of 560. What we're going to do today is continue our SOUL session that we worked on yesterday. You'll all be presenting your information to the whole class, so make sure each one of you has something to present, and you record and share your findings at the end. Okay, so you can start your SOUL session, and also don't forget to put up your vocab and your websites, please. You will have 20 minutes, so keep an eye on the timer. You can move around the room or sit on the floor wherever you like. You can start now.
One of the things about lesson study is that, you know, you teach, you change what needs to be changed, and then you reteach. And we've done that today. And you talked about the reteach being how you changed it up. Can you just refresh us on that one?
So the reteach of Amanda's lesson study was Amanda conducted her SOUL session with her class, whereas for my session we changed it up with students from 568 and 560. So we halved our class up roughly, and we called it the buddy class, and that was a strategy that we adopted from the SOUL program when we were doing our program there. The reason why we did that is just to challenge the students. We found that the kids, while they were doing it in our class, were always going in the same groups. We thought, let's see how the dynamics change if we buddy them up with different students and challenge them. I believe the lesson went really well. I think our outcome was achieved. All the kids were engaged, all of them were on task, all of them completed everything that they needed to do in their success criteria.
I really think that the learning intention was really nailed. And if we really look at the learning intention, which was to work collaboratively, locate, analyse, summarise and evaluate sources using technology, it's that broad concept of learning intention. So looking at learning intentions, I think, was really great.
Difficulties is mainly the pressure of it. We know that teachers across the school are there to support us, but it is quite nerve-wracking thinking that you're going to have a group of teachers coming in and viewing your lesson. However, the first few times we did it, we realised that it's constructive. No one's there to give you negative feedback or say that you're not teaching well. It's really a great tool to become a more proficient teacher.
Lesson study has allowed us to see how our professional learning and the strategies that we're talking about and learning to improve student outcome, it allows us to see how it's been embedded in classrooms. And because we do it K to 6 and because we share across stages now, it allows all of us to see how it's been embedded, but it also gives us lots of ideas that we can actually take and modify to use in our own classrooms.
Okay, so do you think lesson study, is it an effective or ineffective way to observe our learners?
It's an effective way, of course.
Yeah, okay. So what is it about, Mr. Ahmed? Is it about watching the learners or the teacher, or what is
No,
lesson study about?
The observation is everything. You can the teacher can observe the learners. He can circulate around the room, listen to children talking. He can implement new learning strategies and thinking of any other ideas that we can share with our learners, either make them in pair work and group work. They share their ideas with each other and with the teacher. So there's a kind of interaction between the teacher and the students and between the students and themselves.
Yes, excellent. So, and have you noticed the SOUL technique? Do you know what's meant by the SOUL technique? Self-organized learners. It means self-organized learners. It means you can have some of your learners with a buddy or another group of another classroom of your friends, and you put them together and reteach the same lesson. For example, Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Muhammad, you can teach the same lesson in your classes, And after that, you can mix a group of your class with a group of Mr. Muhammad's class and reteach the same lesson again and watch or observe how will it work with the learners. And the focus here for the visitors of the class, the observers, is the goals of the lesson, the means of technology they use, how did they interact together, how do the teacher engage or involve all the learners. So do you think, again, once more again, do you think we can apply a technique like this in our schools, a lesson study?
Yes, I do it with my college.
Wow, wonderful, Hannah. You are really amazing. Every time you surprise us with something new, Hannah. So, okay, how do you practice it, Hannah, with your colleagues? Can you tell us?
Yes, yes, she
Okay.
is younger than me, and she wanted me to help her. So I said that I want her to help me. So
That's
we
great.
agreed
Yes.
we agreed to record every lesson of mine by her, and record every lesson by her by me.
That's
Yes,
great. Yes.
so I am the recorder for her lessons, and she is the recorder for my lesson. And at
Yes.
the end of each lesson, we sit down and say what was wrong, what was beautiful, what is to do next time.
So
But
you
it
give
is
feedback and
very,
reflection on how
yes,
to improve and develop the next time. That's really great. So
yes.
this is the target of the class observation, to give feedback and reflection and to help and support each others. Okay. After watching the video, have you noticed what did the teachers do? Did they take notes? Did they discuss the lesson after the lesson finished? Did they talk about the learners? What did the teachers talk about after the lesson finished? Can you tell me, please?
Yes, they discussed.
Yes, they make a discussion together.
Yeah, that's a great, Mervat. Yes.
Or a meeting for discuss the main point, which is they observe the way the teacher taught, and they try to be positive, try
Excellent.
to not to judge the teacher, just
Wonderful. Yes.
to say something about the strategy that the learners learn by it.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So this is exactly the target again for the class observation, to benefit from each other's and exchange experience and information together, and to know and focus on how the learners are engaged in the lesson, how did they interact, how did they help each others, how did they run the lesson, what kinds of technology did they use. And the peer observation is also very clear here. The learners themselves are observing the other colleagues from the other classroom. They are working together in a very well organized way, as you have watched and noticed in the video. So as teachers or as mentors in our schools, I hope, inshallah, we all will try to have some class observations with our colleagues, not to judge each others, not to criticize or to
give a negative feedback.
Yes, give a negative feedback, but instead, of course, to give a constructive feedback, and we will talk about constructive feedback later, to improve, to tell each other how to improve ourselves and give a good reflection and a real reflection on the goals of the lesson, the tools we are using, the items, or did we finish or did we cover all the items of the lesson or not? Did we achieve the goal of the lesson or not? And do you remember when we talked about goals, how do we want our goals to be? We want our goals to be what, my dear friends? Do you remember? When we write our goals, or when we prepare our goals, how do we want our goals to be achieved? Is it to be achieved in a traditional way, or
Smart.
Or in
To be
Ineffective, yeah, of
smart.
course, smart to be specific.
Smart.
To be, yes, smart to be specific, to be, of course, timed, to be
measurable.
yeah, measurable, of course, achievable,
Real.
and relevant, yes, relevant
And
to the learners, yeah.
in
And
a
what else?
limited time. In limited
Yes,
time.
and of course in limited time. So we till now we have two techniques of class observation. We mentioned one on the previous session last Friday, and we have another one today. Do you remember what was the first one? And we said that we will try to apply, inshallah. And amazingly, we find that Hannah applied in her classes. Do you know what is it? What is the first technique we will try, inshallah? For self-observation as a teacher or as a mentor or as a trainer. Do you remember?
Peer observation.
Peer observation, and the most
Recording the
important
class.
point for us is
Recording.
Excellent, excellent, Noha. That's what I really need, to record or to video record our lessons, to always reflect and give feedback to ourselves to improve the next and the coming sessions. Okay. And the second technique today we can apply with our colleagues is the lesson study. And the aim of the lesson, what is the aim of the lesson study? What is the aim of the lesson study? You are sleepy today. To know how to achieve the goals, how to reteach the lesson in a better way next time, how to use the SAL technique, self-organized learners technique, and how to observe our learners and help them work and interact with each other effectively in a wonderful, amazing way. Okay, so let's know how other more techniques about classroom observation in the last coming session, inshallah, or the last part of our lesson after this one finishes. Okay, I'll share the screen again. I know we're going to finish. Oh my God, what am I doing? Is it okay till now, my dear friends?
Yes.